Hello and welcome to the week 3 edition of the Monster Pod here on lineups.com. Matt, Brown, Noops, Christensen getting ready to run through each and every game, every bet that's in our account. If we don't like a game, hey, that's fine. We'll put it on a rocket and fire it into the moon. But it is an interesting week to say the least in some games that I think that there will be multiple ways to go about playing them. So, Noops, let's kick things off here with the Indianapolis Colts on the road at the Tennessee Titans. This is currently sitting 4.5 in favor of the Colts on the road at the Titans. 43.5 is our total here in this one. Listen, Daniel Jones through 2 weeks looks like he's competent inside this Shane Steichen offense. It looks like they're not asking him to do too much, and he is kind of answering the call of not having to do too much in Tennessee. We talked about this a little last week, that maybe there were some flashes from Cam Ward that he was going to make some mistakes along the way. I think that's still probably the case with all of this, but is the Colts heading on the road as more than a field goal? How do we feel about the 4.5 number?
Yeah, a really interesting number. And what I love to do in these first couple weeks, try to look at what the line was expected to be. And if you look preseason, honestly, coming into this, Tennessee was expected to be a small favorite in this game. Now, I don't think that's necessarily correct based on what we've seen from Daniel Jones. Has to be tough to be Anthony Richardson. Watching Daniel Jones just go out there and honestly just not mess things up here. But I still think, again, even coming into last week, this game was expected to be less than 3. We're all the way over 4.5. And I just think we're at the point now with the Colts where they're just a little bit too overrated. I mean, you go back and look at that Broncos-Colts game, everyone's going to remember that leverage play at the end. Even before that, there was a handful of things that kind of bounced the Colts' way that really opened things up. And maybe we overrated Denver coming into the season. I think this is a great spot to kind of fade this Colts team. This line to me is at least a point and a half too high. So I'm going to take the Titans. It's 4 some places, 4.5 other places. I think either of those numbers are really good for a team that's shown me a lot despite losing their first couple games. You know, it's hard to feel excited about a rookie quarterback that's 0-2, but I think Cam Ward has a real good feel for how to be an NFL quarterback, has made some nice throws. I don't love betting on a coach that doesn't know what the definition of a catch is, but none of us know what that is anymore. So I'll throw that out. Give me the Titans here.
I played Tyler Warren. I'm just going to keep firing it until the books adjust. I mean, it's 47.5 right now. He is obviously the number one target there for Daniel Jones. And again, he does everything that Daniel Jones does well. He gets open in the 7 to 8 yard range and then gets you yak after everything. And so, like, until we start to see these numbers in the 50s, and which I think we'll be maybe as soon as next week for Tyler Warren, I'm going to continue to play the overs and keep going at it. So 47.5 is a play for me on the over until we start to get to this thing being too high. And that might be, again, as soon as next week. Atlanta Falcons are on the road at the Carolina Panthers. This is currently 5.5 in favor of the Atlanta Falcons on the road over the Panthers. 43.5 to 44 is our total here in this one. Noops, we see a Carolina team. This defense continues to struggle mightily, but signs of life a little bit from the offense last week. If you are a PFF believer, I think everybody probably is like thinking that Bryce Young is the worst quarterback in the NFL or something. Well, I mean, he's 20th right now. And granted, I understand that doesn't mean that there's too many quarterbacks that he is ahead of, but he is ahead of some named quarterbacks according to these grades and everything, and actually has put together some sort of decent flashes here with this one. That being said, I'm going off the beaten path at least a little bit in Survivor this week. I'm going to play the Falcons here against Carolina. I think that this is a pretty good spot to just attack this Carolina defense that might end up being the absolute worst in the league by margin. And so that's how I'm going to invest in this game. I don't have a side or total here in this one because I will have several $1,000 worth of entries rolling on Atlanta. How do you look at this one?
It's a very interesting contrarian pick for Survivor. I like what you said about the Panthers defense coming into the season. They were expected to be bad, and we were absolutely right. They stink. It's just a brutal, brutal unit in terms of trying to slow opponents down. You also mentioned Bryce Young, now 20th in PFF ratings. That's actually a move up. He was lower after week 1 here. So, like you said, maybe there is some optimism. The Panthers are getting into a little bit of form, but at the same time, they were just overestimating a couple touchdowns scored against an Arizona Cardinals team that was not doing anything other than trying to run the clock down. Again, a lot of really interesting penalties at the end of that game to kind of get the Panthers within the number, but it's another kind of overreaction spot. Before week one, the Falcons are supposed to be small underdogs here. Even before last week, the Falcons were only supposed to be -3. Now that Atlanta goes to Minnesota, beats up on a team that's really been decimated with injuries. We'll talk about the Vikings a little bit later. It's just a tough spot for them in terms of actual personnel that's available. Probably deserve to be pretty big favorites here, but hate teams in the second consecutive road game there. That's always a tough spot, even though they're familiar with being in Carolina. I guess I lean towards the Panthers. I can't believe I'm saying that, but at 5.5, it just seems like maybe it's a half a point or so too high. Definitely not betting this game, but I like your angle for Survivor. It's a really interesting contrarian pick.
Las Vegas Raiders on the road at the Washington Commanders. This is currently, and I say currently big time, at 3.5 in favor of Washington. 44.5 is our total. So we're recording this early on Friday. We do not have the Jaden Daniels status yet. They said they will update us on Friday after practice. And so I think this line is just kind of straddling right now, but whether this is going to be Mariota or whether this is going to be Jaden Daniels. Noops, I kind of wonder if we get a Jaden Daniels and this thing gets to 6, I think I just have to play Las Vegas. I mean, a compromised Jaden Daniels at nearly a touchdown, I think would be my buy point here in this, but that's all I can really give right now because it's such a massive, massive handicap as to whether it's going to be Daniels or whether it's going to be Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, I think you're right in quoting the line of 5.5, 6 in that range if Jaden Daniels is in. I agree that the market's sort of straddling Daniels in and out, leaning more towards him being in. I think if he's out, we'll see this number fall below 3 pretty quickly, end up probably around 1.5, somewhere in that range, where, again, if Daniels is in, it probably pushes out closer to 6. It's a really tough schedule spot for the Raiders. You've got them coming off a Monday night game, so a short week for them. You've got the Commanders coming off Thursday Night Football, so it's a 4-day rest advantage for Washington here. Should be a good get-right spot for them at home. I actually like the Commanders here, and we'll probably bet them if Daniels is healthy. If Daniels is in and this is 5.5, somewhere in that range, I'm going to try to get as much 5 and 5.5 before it floats up to 6. So lean Commanders, but like you said, we have to wait to see what Jay Daniels is doing. Easily the most important player in this game.
Green Bay Packers on the road at the Cleveland Browns. This is 7.5 to 8 in favor of Green Bay. 41.5 is our total. Welcome to the first leg of America's teaser leg. This is going to be in everybody's account to get Green Bay down under the field goal in this thing. Remember, you can do the alt line parlays if you want to. You don't have to ask for the full 6 points. You can just take 5 and get it down to 2.5 if you want to go that route. Noops, I look here and see a Browns team that gave us the kind of the writing on the wall once they started getting blown out last week. They pull Flacco. They end up putting in Dylan Gabriel. We might see the same scenario here with this one as we still slowly start to evolve to one of these rookies getting the start. Therefore, Cleveland, Green Bay looking like a real Super Bowl contender in this thing. It gets even better news on the Micah Parsons front that he's, off the injury report and all that for this team. So, look, square is square. I get it. I have a Green Bay teaser leg. I have a hard time getting to where they don't win this game, basically.
Yeah, the only problem with this, Matt, and as someone who's been a long time better, there's just a sick feeling when you're on the same side as everyone. I haven't heard anyone make a case for the Cleveland Browns here in this game. I think the Packers will be a really big survivor pick, and I think it's a pretty solid survivor pick. I mean, the Packers do have a couple other spots down the road this season where maybe you'll want to use them, but this is a pretty good spot for them here, going up against a Cleveland team that, like you said, starting Joe Flacco, but not sure if that's really the answer here. I'm not sure how the Browns score really any points in this game. I was hoping to take a Browns team total under, but it sits at 16.5. It's a little juicy to the under there. So I think that's probably still the best way to attack this game. Just worried that we get late in the fourth quarter. The Packers are up by quite a bit. We're just trying to run the clock down. We see some late points here for the Browns to get them to 17, maybe even 20 points here. But it's definitely Packers or pass. I'm just a little worried anytime everyone is on one side, and I'm going to let this one go.
Yeah, if we do think that this one could get out of hand in favor of the Packers, they already told us that they're willing to put Flacco on the sideline and go to Dylan Gabriel. So if you are of that mindset out there, then maybe you're just looking at Flacco unders in this game because he, in the fourth quarter is on the sideline watching Dylan Gabriel play. So that's another angle you could attack that game if you think that that's how the thing's going to play out. Cincinnati Bengals on the road at the Minnesota Vikings. This is now just 3 points in favor of Minnesota. 42.5 is our total here in this one. Nobody cares about the line that I got that you can't get anymore, but I have Cincinnati on the other side of 3 in this one. I didn't get it, Noops. I mean, I understand it's Browning versus Wentz, but Browning has at least had a decent amount of experience playing in this offense, knows this team very well, has at times looked competent. I cannot say the same for Carson Wentz, who, by the way, only got picked up a few weeks ago by Minnesota in this thing. For them to be over a field goal favorite's crazy. I mean, if you had to make me bet this thing, even at the number of 3, I think I'd still be taking the 3 points with Cincinnati, mainly because I don't know what's left in the tank with Carson Wentz. I have no idea if the guy can play in the NFL anymore or not.
You hit the nail right on the head. I think the market is struggling to evaluate a quarterback situation that is not quite as murky as maybe it seems. Like you said, Carson Wentz, the backup quarterback for the Vikings, has not played a serious football game in some time. Joined the team well after training camp was over, has not had a lot of time with these receivers, with this offense. Now it's Kevin O'Connell. He's a genius, and we know he can pretty much do whatever he wants with quarterbacks at this point. But gosh, I'm really struggling to see how Carson Wentz, behind a beat up offensive line. Again, as I mentioned earlier in the show, the Vikings really have a bad look at injury report here on both sides of the ball. The offensive line has a couple pieces that are beat up, might miss the game defensively. It's really rough. They're missing some key pieces here. So I don't understand why people are so down on Jake Browning. Now, he threw a couple interceptions coming into the game last week against the Jaguars, but I think he was told to sling the ball around. That's what the Bengals needed to win that game. So you take your risk there. And apologies to whomever shared this stat with me. I can't quite remember to give them credit, but somebody looked over, I think it was the last 5 or 6 years in terms of PFF grades and things like that. Joe Burrow was the 15th best quarterback. Jake Browning was 16th. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Jake Browning is just as good as Joe Burrow, but I don't think it's that big of a difference here. And I would have this game pretty close to a pick 'em. I'll happily take the Bengals +3. Hats off to you, Matt, for jumping in early at 3.5. I still think this is a great number. And don't be afraid to play the Bengals money line either. I think they can win this game outright.
I am with you 100% on them winning outright. The defensive losses for Minnesota just compound what we might get out of Carson Wentz as well. So I like Cincinnati in multiple different ways here in this one. In one of the 2, I should say, games of the week this week, the Rams on the road at the Philadelphia Eagles. This is 3 and a hook in favor of the Eagles at home over the Rams. 44.5 is our total here in this one. I have futures tickets on both of these teams. I was in love with both of these teams heading into the season. I'm still in love with both of these teams. That said, Noops, I think you could make the argument that the Rams have looked like the better team so far.
I don't think that's even really a difficult argument to make. Now, part of it could be competition. I think the Rams have played, lesser teams than the Eagles here through 2 weeks, but it's hard to feel excited about the Eagles given how vanilla the offense has looked, how much they've struggled against zone, pretty basic coverages here. And unless Jalen Hurts has done something really spectacular, the Eagles offense has struggled to score. We know the Rams, it's a revenge spot coming off that playoff game last year, arguably the toughest playoff game the Eagles had to win against this Rams team. Should be a good matchup for them. A little bit worried. Second road game in a row for Los Angeles. Second time having to come out basically to the other coast. That could be really tough, especially for a veteran team. I think this game might be a little bit of a slog. The Eagles, we know they love running the ball. Hardly anybody better than Nick Sirianni at grinded out clock at the end of a game. Same thing with the Rams. McVay knows kind of how to control the clock things there. So lean towards the under here a little bit. I think the Rams are a live dog, but nothing really sticks out to me as great value.
Yeah, one of the things I think that's gone a little underrated as far as why this Philadelphia offense might be a little clunky here at the beginning of the season. It's when you got Saquon and you got AJ and you got Brown and you got Smith and everyone was talking about all that. And like Dallas Goedert just kind of gets forgotten. And then Goddard gets hurt early in game 1, goes out, misses game 2 as well. And I think that he plays a role in this offense that kind of gets looked over. And I think that that's a pretty big loss for them on this. I think if you made me play this thing, I'd probably take the 3.5 with the Rams, but I do like your under look here for sure. It's if you look at the path of this, and by the way, this Rams defense has played great to start out the season too, do you see Philadelphia just lighting up this Rams defense? I do not. Do I see the Rams completely changing their game plan and style of play against Philadelphia? I don't. And so everything kind of does point to the under. And again, you're on the other side of 44 here, which is a pretty good little number if you want to take the under on 44.5. Pittsburgh Steelers on the road at the New England Patriots. This is currently sitting 1.5 in favor of the Steelers on the road over New England. 44.5 is our total here in this one. Noops, it is an interesting handicap here between two teams that have looked, that maybe the surface stats don't quite tell the story with both of them.
Yeah, I think this is a spot where I'm really struggling to wrap my head around why the Steelers are favored. I'm not sure what the Steelers have shown me to deserve to be favored in this game. I mean, that Jets game was an absolute mess. They probably should have lost that game. Seattle, yes, their kick returner made probably the worst special teams play of all time, just simply not knowing what the rules are. But even then, they still lost the game by 2 touchdowns and gave up 31 points to a Seattle offense that has really been less than impressive as what is expected to be very good. And they scored 31 points with a couple turnovers. I think we're looking at a Pittsburgh defense here that hasn't really been terribly good. And you start to look at some of the injuries here. Alex Highsmith is going to be out. Joey Porter looks like he's questionable, leaning towards being out. Those are 2 absolutely huge pieces here. I mean, I have them rated pretty close to the Patriots. Patriots at home, they should get that home field advantage. I think this line should be flipped. It should be closer to Patriots -1.5, even -2.5. I couldn't make a case for 3, but I'll take the Patriots on the money line here. As long any number that has a plus in front of it, I think is a really solid bet for a team that has played just as good, possibly even better than a Steelers team that's, again, on the road here.
We talked about that Bryce Young was ranked 20th through 2 weeks, according to Pro Football Focus. Aaron Rodgers, 25th in the NFL through 2 weeks, according to their pass grades over there. And I have rewatched both of their games now, and I think that this team is in trouble. I don't think the Steelers are very good. I think the defensive side has some real problems. And then Aaron Rodgers is just not there. I mean, he is old man. He is not Joe Flacco, but I'll tell you what, he's much closer to Joe Flacco than he is to any of the good quarterbacks in the league. I can tell you that right now. And so I actually love playing the Patriots on the money line here. I don't need the 1.5. I know some people were talking to me about, well, what about using them as a teaser leg? Why don't I pair them up with whatever? I guess I just don't think it's necessary. I am okay just playing them, either taking the 1.5 or taking the money line here with what I have in my power ratings is the better team. Like, I have the Patriots ahead of the Steelers after I've done kind of my research here on this Steelers team. So I am agreeing with you 100% on this thing. Give me this New England team at home at plus money all day long in that puppy. New York Jets on the road at the Tampa Bay Bucs. This is still 6.5, 7 out there in favor of the Bucs. 43.5 is our total here in this one. Noops, I thought the 7s would be gone. When all the news came through on Wednesday, I took the 7 with the Jets. I just held my nose and played it. But I mean, we're talking about cluster injuries at the most important part of the field, except for the quarterback position, and that's the offensive line. This Bucs team is going to be without at least 3 offensive linemen in this thing. You lose Cansey on the defensive side. You got Egbuka popping up on their injury report. Now, they're not saying it's anything serious, but just, again, you don't like to see that with your rookie who's been pretty good. Baker's been putting the ball in danger as well, leads the league in turnover-worthy plays so far. I don't like the Jets, and I understand it's Tyrod Taylor, but full touchdown, I couldn't turn it down. There's still one of those available out there in the market as we record right now.
It's really tough to pass up that 7. I was pretty close to grabbing it. It's just a game that I'm really struggling to understand. I mean, the Buccaneers win 2 games in very close fashion. Are the Falcons better than we thought? Are the Texans really as bad as they've looked? It's really hard for me to rate this Buccaneers team, like you said, especially with all those injuries. Baker Mayfield moves around very good, great at using his feet, but really is going to struggle here. I think this should be the spot where if the Jets defense is any good, if the Jets defense is as good as we thought it could be coming into the season, not what we've seen for the first 2 weeks of the season, this should be the spot. They should be able to generate some pressure here against Mayfield, try to control things. Sauce Gardner should have no problem following Mike Evans around all day. It's a spot where it's definitely Jets or pass. I just can't quite get myself there. This New York team, they might actually be better with Tyrod Taylor. Now, the ceiling isn't going to be as high, but the floor is much better. Just, again, not sure. I can't remember the last time I saw Tyrod Taylor play full 60 minutes of football here. So very close to betting the Jets. I love that you got the +7 there. If you've got +7 in front of you, it's a perfectly good bet, but I think I'm going to let this one go.
Houston Texans on the road at the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is currently a 1.5 in favor of Jacksonville at home over the Texans. 44 to 44.5 is our total. You know, Noops, we came into this season worried about the offensive line for the Houston Texans. Everybody out there, I mean, everyone that put out rankings had this offensive line dead last in the NFL heading into the season. I cannot remember a consensus pick on something like this leading into a season before now, and it was Texans 32nd offensive line in the NFL. Through 2 weeks, they've been terrible, and they have really made life tough on C.J. Stroud trying to put anything consistent together so far. That said, Jacksonville hasn't really able to put any pressure on the quarterback so far through 2 weeks either. Boy, this is quite the interesting handicap in a game that might actually really and truly mean something, even though we're only here in week number 3.
It's crazy to say that there's a must-win game in week 3, but if the Houston Texans don't win this game, they're done. There is no way for them to really come back from this. Their schedule only gets harder at this point. Totally agree with what you said about the line. You have to feel bad for C.J. Stroud. I mean, the ball is hitting his hands when he's in shotgun, and there's guys standing in his face already. Now, the Jaguars' defense is not one of the better units. Trayvon Walker has been really good. He should be able to generate some pressure, but I would assume the Texans would find some way to scheme against him, keep a tight end, keep a running back on that side, try to double, even triple him the whole game. The Texans absolutely have to win this game. And I wonder how the Jaguars are going to respond to finally playing a good defense. You go back and look, they've been pretty solid. We had the team total over last week. That was an absolutely smooth, easy win, but 26 points against Carolina, 27 points against Cincinnati. Is that actually really that impressive? I mean, we already talked about how bad the Panthers defense is. We know the Bengals defense is a mess outside of their defensive line there. It's Houston or pass, but I just don't know how to feel good about them. Like you said, the offensive line is a mess, and I'm worried about the Texans' defense. Coming into the season, we thought the Texans' defense would be one of the best units in the league, and I don't know. The Buccaneers pretty much could get 5-6 yards per run whenever they wanted last week. This is a really scary spot for Houston. I'm going to go with the team, with their backs against the walls here that have to win. So lean Texans, but it's really hard to trust Stroud and company.
Yeah, I'm curious as to what they're going to do to try to make life easier on Stroud. And I it's still early, and that's why I have trouble making a case for Jacksonville in this one, because I still, I had Jacksonville and Houston separated fairly decently whenever I came into the season, even with those offensive line concerns with the Texans. This should be an easy smash play for me on Houston if it hadn't have been from what I've seen so far with all this. But they've got to be, they have guys that are in there reviewing film. I mean, they've got to be able to figure out how to scheme up some stuff to keep CJ Stroud from, just being pressured on every single drop back, Noops. And the run game, you got to go to Woody Marks at some point, right? I mean, Chubb looks completely washed, and maybe that has to do with the offensive line too, but I don't know. 70.5 prop on Nico Collins right now. I know, and that seems like it should be low for a guy of Nico Collins' skill set, but they've not been able to put consecutive drives together basically all season long. So it's just a very interesting handicap and interesting way to try to figure out how they're going to go about trying to create consistent offense.
Yeah, it's just going to be a really tough spot. Again, Houston has got to find a way to score the ball. You see Stroud, when he has a few seconds, made some really nice throws to Nico Collins, but it's so far and few between. Again, Houston's got to find a way to generate some offense. I couldn't agree more on Woody Marks. Chubb looks very slow. Dare Ogunbowale looks just small out there on the field. I don't know what is keeping them from having Marks on the field. So this, as Dan Fouts loves to say, this is not quite the last game of the season, but they better not hold anything back.
Yeah, I might take a dart on a Marks anytime touchdown or something like that. Just that they come to their senses, at some point during the game and go, okay, This guy's obviously much better, and he gives us a better chance of moving the ball. So we shall see. Denver Broncos on the road at the LA Chargers. This is 2.5, 3 in favor of the Chargers at home over the Denver Broncos. 45.5 to 46 is our total. Noops, the Chargers came to Las Vegas last week on Monday night. I don't get a chance to go to games really unless they're standalone games. So made it over to the Death Star for Monday Night Football to sit through what was maybe the worst football game I've ever sat through in my entire life. No positives came from that experience, including the obnoxious fan that was in front of me that made it life even worse after I'm sitting there having to watch this terrible football game. And he's going absolutely nuts and crazy and doing all the stupid stuff that basically the stereotypical kind of like Raider fan, and you're just like, all right, dude, really? Like we're doing this? Like we're doing this? Like, okay, great. I'm glad I'm here for 60 minutes of that. That being said, man, the Chargers too, really confusing stuff. I mean, I know we always talk about Harbaugh being super sharp, but there was a point that he went for it on 4th and 1 from the 20, only later in that drive to kick a field goal from the 1 yard line on 4th down, and all of these things. A 4th and 1 later on in the game in which he didn't have his first round running back out there on the field, and you're just going, okay, even if you're not going to use him, maybe as a decoy, maybe whatever, like didn't even have Amari Hampton out on the field. Justin Herbert's a stud. Looks like maybe this pass game is working, but I think that might be a product of how bad the run game has been. So I don't know where to go with this. Bo Nix, we said Bryce Young was 20th, and we said that Aaron Rodgers was 25th. Yeah, guess who's 34th of qualifying quarterbacks? Yeah, Bo Nix. Yeah, Bo Nix. Yeah, Bo Nix is 34 of the 34 qualifiers so far through 2 weeks. So weird game, weird handicap, weird everything for me.
It is, so you start with the Chargers. Are they really as good as they've looked? They beat a Kansas City Chiefs team that we know has struggled to start the year, that had to deal with losing Xavier Worthy, probably the most important offensive piece that they have at the beginning of the game. And then the Chargers come in, and first half, they look great. 17 points against this Raiders team, but only 3 points in the second half there. And we've seen their offense be so clunky. And by the way, if someone had sat through a lot of meaningless Eagles games, I think I know the fan that you got stuck behind, and there's just nothing worse than having to deal with that for 60 minutes. So hats off to you for riding it out there, because it was, what a mess of a football game. Only 6 points in the second half. I hope you at least head home a little bit early to avoid the traffic, but it's hard for me to feel that the Chargers are as good as maybe some of the results. At the same time, the Denver Broncos are just a mess. You go back to that Titans game in week 1, at no point did it ever feel like the Broncos were 100% winning that game. Even towards the end on 4th and 9, instead of punting the ball, Sean Payton decides to run a play action throw that ended up being an almost touchdown on a Hail Mary, but just mind-boggling decision there. You've got the leverage mess against the Indianapolis Colts here. And the Broncos defense to me is really what is concerning. To give up 29 points to a Colts team that I thought they'd match up pretty well against. You figure you'd put Surtain on Pittman, focus on stopping Jonathan Taylor in the run, try to slow down Warren a little bit. They should have linebackers that do that, but just not the case. So are the Chargers this good? Are the Broncos this bad? I kind of think that they might be. I think this is a decent spot for the Chargers. Again, second consecutive road game for the Broncos. This will be the Chargers' first actual home game. They were in Brazil week 1, on the road in week 2. So I think it's a spot actually to back the Chargers. But I think the best angle here is whoever you think is going to win this game, just bet them to win the AFC West. At this point coming into it, if the Broncos win, they'll be 2-1 with a tiebreaker over the Chargers. If the Chargers win this game, they'll be 3-0 with tiebreakers over the Chiefs, over the Broncos here. I think this is a game that will have a very meaningful impact on who wins the AFC West. So I think that really is the best angle. If you like either of these teams, take them to win the AFC West. I lean towards the Chargers, but nothing official.
If you're in an ESPN bet market, then you do have access to a 2.5 minus 110 on the Chargers. I would make Denver prove it to me, I guess, like prove it to me that Bo Nix is not like regressing here in year 2. I think at this point through 2 weeks, I can't see myself backing them on the road. And I understand the home field advantage over there in LA isn't really that great, and probably will be as many Denver fans in that stadium as there are Charger fans, but I think I would tell Bo Nix to prove it to me at under a field goal. And if I was wrong, I was wrong, and we'll move on from there and I can reassess. So probably the 2.5 110 would be my play here for the Chargers.
Yeah, that's
Saints,
definitely the best look.
Yeah, and again, that's available if you're in an ESPN bet market. DraftKings is at 115 right now there on that one. New Orleans Saints on the road at the Seattle Seahawks. Welcome to the second leg of America's teaser. 7.5 in favor of Seattle. 41.5 is our total here in this one. Everybody is going to have Seattle as your second leg of the teaser this week. Seattle likely to be the most popular pick in all survivor pools as well. A little bit on the survivor angle here, Noops, with that, in my opinion. I know there's a lot of people out there who try to play these pools and say, like, well, I don't want to take the most popular pick. And I can understand from a game theory perspective how you would try to, if at all possible, maybe zig where other people are zagging. I will also say there's not another spot that you're going to feel comfortable using Seattle for the rest of the season. And so you can try and avoid them this week and say, like, well, I don't want to play them because everyone's playing them. But you've now also discarded a team that you can't use basically the rest of the season. And so it's different when there is another team that you feel good about using. It's different when you have a spot later in the season that you feel good about using said team if you're going to discard them. But this week, you're basically putting Seattle in the pile of teams that you're not going to use all season long. And I do think that actually puts you kind of at a little bit of a disadvantage. And so, I have 10 still left over in Circa. I'm going to play 6 on Seattle and 4 on Atlanta. Again, I just can't. I don't want to waste, and I say waste, like I don't want to waste Seattle here at home against New Orleans coming back. And while Darnold's playing pretty well and this team looks like okay. So again, that's my spiel there on the survivor angle of this thing.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. This is by far my favorite survivor selection of the week, not just because this is really the only time you use Seattle. And it sounds kind of crazy to try to talk about how good the Seahawks are, but there's not really another great spot for them. But it just speaks to how tough their schedule is. Any team that they're going to be much better at, they're on the road. Teams that they're playing at home, now we'll see what happens. They've got a game against Minnesota. They do go to Tennessee late in the season. We'll see if the Colts are still pretty good once we get to that game at the end of the year. But this is just an awesome spot. And another thing with Survivor is it's week 3, guys. We don't have to get creative yet. This isn't the time. This isn't the moment where you're not going to win in Survivor week 3 just because you're the only one that weren't on Seattle. We're still trying to survive. That is the name of the game, right? We're trying to take teams that are going to win. This is an awesome spot for Seattle. They're back at home. We've got a New Orleans Saints team on the road. It's going to be a really tough spot for Spencer Rattler and that offense going up against the Seahawks defense that has been tremendous. I think that the Seattle defense is probably one of the more underrated units in the league at this point, just simply because they're not talking about them among the very best defenses in the NFL. That's where I have them. I think that they're without a doubt in that top tier. They should be able to control this game, dictate the pace of it. Sam Darnold, I was a little disappointed to see him turn the ball over a bit last week, but probably spent all week watching that film, learning how not to do that. I just think this is a fantastic spot. We're going to see Seattle play another good game at home. They're comfortable there. I love Seattle. They're going to be my pick in just about every survivor pool I have, except for maybe a couple of the bigger ones. I'll try to, maybe do something a little bit smaller, but no need to get cute, folks. Seattle is winning this game. I love them in Survivor. And I like a Saints team total under here. It's 16.5. I mean, this offense is just absolutely putrid. I know they were able to score 3 touchdowns last week, but not against a defense nearly as good as what we'll see in Seattle. So give me the Seahawks in Survivor and give me a Saints team total under 16.5.
This Saints secondary has really struggled so far this year as well. I think Jackson Smith-Njigba has proven himself to be worthy of a number 1 wide receiver role now that DK Metcalf is out of town. If you're playing DFS out there, I think an interesting spot, for JSN, I would be looking at him. I know that you can find a 73.5 out there in the receiving market. This wouldn't surprise me. I know we too often, it's kind of the catchy thing right now for people in our industry to be like, oh, ladder this. But I mean, JSN right here playing 80 plus, 90 plus, 100 plus on him against this Saints team, I think is a pretty decent play. I mean, this guy we talked about this coming out of the draft. His teammate said he was the best receiver on the team. This was a team that had other first rounders out there with him. And I think he's really starting to show that here, Noops. And I think JSN, this could be kind of the like, oh, JSN is like the truth game. Like, I think he could go absolutely nuclear in this thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. It should be a fantastic matchup for him. I guess the only thing holding me back is if it's a Seattle blowout, does he maybe get a little bit of a rest in the fourth quarter? So that's the only thing holding me back. But I agree. I love JSN. I think he is absolutely one of the most underrated receivers in the league at this point.
Dallas Cowboys on the road at the Chicago Bears. This is now fully everywhere, a point and a half in favor of Dallas. This started out in favor of the Bears, and the market said, no thanks on that. Now, the flip through zero doesn't mean all that much, other than it does give us a snapshot of where the sentiment is towards the Chicago Bears team as everybody raced to get a bet in for the Dallas Cowboys as this thing was on the other side. 50.5 is our total here in this one. Dallas defense, terrible. Dallas offense, good. Chicago, good for one series, basically, and then doesn't look very good past that. Noops, what do we do here with this game?
How could you possibly feel good about betting on either of these teams? I mean, the Cowboys really struggled. They looked terrible in the second half in week 1 against Philadelphia. They did everything they could to try to lose that Giants game. I have never seen a football team do so many things to try to give the Giants opportunities to win that game. It was just a mess. At the same time, like you said, the Bears come out. I'll even give him 2 good drives for Caleb Williams, but that's it. And that's what I wonder here. Is this possibly the last stand for Caleb Williams? If he can't score points against a Cowboys defense that is beat up, that is bad, I don't know what you do here if you're Chicago. Do you actually consider pulling in Case Keenum as your backup here or try to do something else? Because it just doesn't seem to be working for him. He's double pumping. He's not getting the ball out quick. It's exactly everything that Ben Johnson told us we didn't want to see Caleb Williams doing here. So I don't know how you feel good about the Bears. Don't know how you feel good about the Cowboys. I think as you kind of hinted at when you started talking about this game, I think the most reliable thing is the Cowboys offense. Again, 20 points in the first half against the Philadelphia Eagles, very solid. Scored in bunches in that game against the Giants. And as much as they did try to lose it, they were able to move the ball. They were in kind of control. They knew what they needed to do. So lean towards the Cowboys. But, as you like to say, if we had to launch one game into the sun, Matt, it'd probably be this one for me.
Cowboys defense. I mean, like you said, if Caleb Williams can't figure this out so far, and it's small sample size, I get all that, guys. But I mean, they are second to last to the Dolphins in drop back EPA allowed per game right now. I mean, we saw Russell Wilson turn back the clock and go for 450 against these dudes. I mean, this is Caleb Williams has got to get something done here through the air. And if not, you gotta wonder about the future there in Chicago. Arizona Cardinals on the road at the San Francisco 49ers. This is currently 2.5 in favor of the 49ers at home over Arizona. 45.5 is our total. Now, Noops, as we record this, there is, quote, a chance that Brock Purdy plays for San Francisco. Mac Jones would go if that was not going to be the case. And so we're having to handicap this on the chance that Purdy plays. And I guess my question to you would be, a compromised Brock Purdy or a healthy Mac Jones, what is better for you as a 49er if you wanted to back the 49ers? Like, at 2.5 right now, I would rather it be Mac Jones, because if this moves to 3.5 on Brock Purdy news and it's a compromised Brock Purdy, I might have to take the Cardinals on the other side of 3 if I'm getting a compromised Brock Purdy. So like a lot of my handicap has to do with how this ultimately shakes out for San Francisco. But boy, I'll play against a compromised Brock Purdy. I feel perfectly fine with that.
I love the way you're thinking about this because I couldn't agree more. Now, from a football perspective, Brock Purdy is better than Mac Jones, but we're talking about a compromised Brock Purdy, and we're betting. So there's a lot of different things at play here. With Mac Jones, like you said, the line's pretty much 2.5 everywhere. It's starting to be a little bit juicy at -115, -120. But if they announce Purdy is in, I think this line snaps to 3.5, maybe even 4 in some places. I really wouldn't be surprised with that move, and I don't agree with it. I think that, again, you're right. Mac Jones being healthy, we know what Kyle Shanahan can do. I think last week, honestly, was probably a lot of fun for him to not have to, to get creative, to try to figure out some different things to do here. So the 49ers, for the most part, are still healthy on offense. And again, would rather have a healthy Brock Purdy, but that's not one of our options. It's either Mac Jones or a beat up Purdy. So give me Mac Jones here. I think that -2.5 is a really nice number. And I'm not someone that tries to middle a lot of games, especially with pregame lines. But if you take the 49ers -2.5 right now, I think worst case, you have a very good bet. And you could, if Brock Purdy is in, this line snaps to 3.5, 4, you could have a really, really juicy middle. So I think if you're going to take the 49ers, go now. That's kind of where I lean, but it's just a game where I'm still struggling to figure out what the Cardinals are. They've had good first halves, bad second halves. And is that indicative of a team that's maybe not as good as what they were in the first half, or indicative of a team where you've got a guy with Jonathan Gannon comes from the Nick Sirianni tree that understands how to grind away games? It's again, I forget who said this. It's one of my favorite things to think about. Sometimes football teams aren't playing their opponent. They're just playing the clock. And maybe that's what the Cardinals have been doing in the second half here. Instead of worrying about what the other team is doing, they're just trying to finish the game. So hard for me to evaluate Arizona, but I think this is a pretty solid spot for San Francisco. And I would definitely bet the 49ers now if you want to.
Yeah, hey guys, as you all know, Sunday Night Football, we partnered up with Bet365 this season. So go in, listen. They're running NFL specials throughout the entire season. So Thursday Night Football, they have a $10 safety net bet there. You can go in and kind of do that whole deal where you can make the bet, and if it doesn't pan out, you get the $10 back. Sunday Night Football, they have a $365,000 jackpot in that thing. Puts a $10 bet on the first touchdown score and get a split of $365,000 in bonus bets if your player scores the final touchdown of the game. So they have that going. They have Monday Night Football promo as well, 50% super profit boost tokens on same game parlays. So all of that going on over there at Bet365, including some markets that you just don't find at some of the other books out there. So if you have not gone in and tried out Bet365, go in, take advantage of those specials running all season long. And of course, if you have a gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. So let's get to Sunday Night Football here, Noops, and that is the Kansas City Chiefs on the road at the New York Football Giants. This is currently 6 in favor of Kansas City on the road over the Giants. 45 is the prevailing total, though you can find a 45.5 out there if you're looking to play the under. It is the 0-2 Kansas City Chiefs. It is the Kansas City Chiefs that I'm going to go ahead and say it. They're good, but they're not the Kansas City Chiefs of old. And now that could change middle of the season when you get Rashee Rice back and you get a healthy Xavier Worthy, and maybe they start limiting snaps for Travis Kelce because he's got a case of the olds and all of that. And I don't know, maybe you trade for a running back or figure out something, because right now Pacheco doesn't look like it, all of that. But today, as we sit here and as we look at this version of the Kansas City Chiefs, I can't imagine myself running and having to lay 6 points on the road, even if it is against the Giants.
Absolutely. And, it's hard to say that there's a must-win game in week 3. I already told you the Texans have to win. The Chiefs have to win this game. If they don't get this win here at New York, they come home to play Baltimore. Then they go to Jacksonville, come home to play Detroit. I mean, those are 3 really tough games in a row there. They do get to host the Raiders, but then Washington, Buffalo, Denver might be possibly good at that point. Indianapolis. The schedule doesn't soften up until the late end of the season, and it might just be too late at that point. I sort of joked in our little notes file we share before doing these shows, this might be the worst game of the week. You've got a New York Giants team that really all Russell Wilson can do is check the ball down or throw moon balls. I don't think this Spagnuolo defense is really going to be too worried about some of those deep passes. As much as it's not as good as the defense we've seen in past years, they're still good at keeping everything in front of them. So I don't understand how the Giants are really going to be able to move the ball without getting lucky on some big plays here. At the same time, like you hit on, this Chiefs offense is nowhere near as good as it's been in the past couple of years. I mean, Andy Reid, still one of the best coaches in the NFL, absolutely has changed the way football teams play offense during his career, but he is going to need to dig deep down into his bag of tricks to figure out what to do with a team that's, again, missing their most electric player on offense and Xavier Worthy, that needs to find a way to limit what Travis Kelce is doing, because, I mean, he's even struggling to block at this point. Forget about going out running routes and finding a way to get open. I mean, he's letting guys go by and hit Mahomes here. That can't stand. So at some point, I think we'll see less of him, more of Noah Gray, maybe even some more of Robert Tonyan, who's a pretty solid blocker, but it's a must-win game for Kansas City. I lean towards the Chiefs. That was why this line was at 5.5 at 6. it just screams stay away from me. I mean, 6 points, we think of that as one score. That's a 2-score win for the Chiefs. The way the Chiefs are playing offense, 6 points is a 2-score victory. And I struggle to see how Kansas City does it. Now, I think they win their game. I'm pretty sure of that, but I'm not using the Chiefs in Survivor. I'm not going to bet on them. It's just a mess here. And from a Giants perspective, too, in the same way this is a tough week for Caleb Williams, I wonder if maybe this is the last time we see Russell Wilson. If he comes out, gets beat up, has a real tough game, we could be throwing darts next week.
Yeah, I'm looking here at a Giants team that we were really – the one thing we were confident about in this Giants team was, hey, they're going to get pressure on the quarterback. They're too talented on the defensive line to not get pressure on the quarterback. Well, we enter week number 3, small sample size, but they're 24th in the NFL in pressure rate on the quarterback. I think the low-key story here is that this offensive line for the Chiefs isn't very good. And I think this is the first time in a long time that Patrick Mahomes is having to operate behind an offensive line that is actually weak. Now, there's been weak spots in his offensive lines in the past, but there were always a couple of studs that kind of masked the overall thing that was going on there. Whereas right now, the whole unit is just mediocre at best for him. And I think they're having to adjust what they really want to do there. But I want to hold on to that handicap that, okay, here come the Giants. They're going to make life hell on Patrick Mahomes, but they have not done it through 2 weeks. They have not been able to get to the quarterback on a consistent basis through 2 weeks. And that's not to say that they won't figure it out here in week number 3, but I can only go with what I've seen so far. And that just hasn't happened. And so, boy, I was really kind of coming in here with the thought of, okay, here it is. This is it. They're not even going to have to blitz. They're just going to get pressure on the quarterback left and right. Mahomes is going to have a hell of a time. And maybe I just hold my nose and take the stinky 6. But in the non-blitz pressure rate, the Giants are 30th in the NFL. Like, there's only 2 teams worse than them that are getting pressure on the quarterback when they're not blitzing. And so I just can't get there with it. I mean, the one thing I guess we know is, like you said, Russ is just going to throw moon balls, right? Malik Neighbors, 24.5 is his long reception number. It is they're low percentage balls, right? That being said, he's going to get 4 to 5 opportunities to make a 25-yard catch in this game. Like that is going to happen. And so can he go 20% on these moon balls that Russ is going to huck up to him? Maybe that's an angle here from a prop perspective to play too, just given the propensity for what Russ likes to do.
Yeah, I liked that call quite a bit. It was something where as I was watching the Cowboys game last week, I was disappointed I didn't just round robin every Giants' longest reception over, given the way he was playing. So I like that. And I would add Wan'Dale Robinson to your list. He has been Russell Wilson's favorite target, I think even more so than Neighbors if you start to look at the snap counts and targets and things. And Robinson's been spectacular, caught a couple long balls as well. So I love that angle. And you do have me thinking about the Giants a little bit. Again, maybe this is the game where the Giants defensive line, which is supposed to be pretty good, again, with Brian Burns, with Dexter Lawrence, with Abdul Carter. At some point, they should be able to generate pressure. Maybe this is the opportunity they were waiting for at home against a bad Kansas City offensive line. I just continue to feel worse and worse about the Chiefs the more we talk about this.
I mean, it's going to be an interesting game because, boy, the Chiefs go to New York and lose that one. It could be all but over for their hopes in that division for sure.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting that we're talking about the Chiefs in that light here in week number 3, but that's where we stand in the NFL. Guys, if you have not done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It is absolutely free. Keeps us bringing this content to you here on the channel without a dollar out of your pocket. So appreciate that. Let us know in the comment section if there's anything that you agree with, disagree with, whatever. Let us know how you are playing some of these games as well. Noops, it's kind of stepping up for some of these teams' time right now. I mean, it's crazy to say that we're talking about some of these teams having to get a win in week number 3, but boy, you dig yourself a massive, massive hole in the NFL with all the parity. Sometimes it's just very hard to dig out of.
It's a short season. There is only so little time, and we forget about that because it feels long, right? We're waiting every week. There's only 17 opportunities to win, and if you give up 3 of them, it's really tough to bounce back. So the Texans, you got to win this week. The Chiefs, you got to win this week, and there's probably even a couple other teams in there. Things can get ugly real quick. So some big moments even here in week 3.
He is Noops. I am Matt. Good luck on all your week 3 bets.
Bet $5, get $300 in bonus bets, win or lose, with Bet365 Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, 21 plus only. T&Cs apply. In app only.